Here is a prediction. Shadowdark and the game Daggerheart and the tabletop role-playing game hobby will have a short shelf life. You know, when Shadowdark was becoming very popular, I seen a lot of people at places where I go game running Shadowdark campaigns, adventures. And now they're mostly all gone. The groups played through it maybe once or twice, and now they're all back to like 5e D&D and 3rd edition D&D, the whole 9 yards. Pathfinder seems to have the same problem, 1 or 2 run-throughs and then back to D&D. This is why when even it seems like a game like Pathfinder might compete with D&D, well, it does for a moment, but things go back to where they were. And I have a prediction that Daggerheart will be the same thing. 1 or 2 playthroughs and then back to D&D. There's a secret sauce that Dungeons and Dragons has. It's something they carried over from TSR to WotC, and it's smart of them because it's the one thing they have that the other tabletop role-playing games don't have. Even the clones really don't have it. They're narrow in their view. And when it comes to D&D, the one thing you don't want to have is a narrow view about what you can do in the game. You want a lot of options with a lot of possible outcomes with the freedom to do anything, and so you never know what's going to happen. Every time you go to play a character, it can be a completely different adventure. And there might be a variety of adventures, but it's not one type of adventure. It's not a narrow focus. And that's really what makes D&D replayable. You know, it's a combination of things, leveling up and all this, all can create a unique experience. You know that every time you're going to play. But you might notice with all these other games like Pathfinder, there's a direct experience. There's not too much leaning out. Oh, you might find individuals that do that, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the majority and how they experience a game like Pathfinder. It's a narrow focus, that's it. Shadowdark, here's the type of game you're playing. It's always going to be sort of the same. There's a lack of variety in the narrow view of what these games are offering. It doesn't mean they're not good. It doesn't mean they're not fun. I get why Shadowdark is popular. I get why Daggerheart might be popular for many people. I even get why Pathfinder was popular. But guess what? So was the Vampire games. So were Palladium. So was every Fringe game. Every Fringe game that started off as most of them were somewhat popular when they first come in. A lot of games over the years have been said to replace D&D or become the new big hot thing. And for a short period of time, you see a community build up around that, and then they flake out. And they always flake out because you only get so much replayability. That goes away, and you go back to the one source that you know you're safe at going to every time you want that variety, where nothing is overly predicted about the outcome. It can be anything. And you want that. You want that variety. You want that freedom to be different. And D&D, well, you could look at what's on offer and know there's no narrow view. You could be whatever you want. You can be different. So you can always look to have a different creative experience. And that sort of freestyle approach is more leaning into TSR D&D than it is to WotC. But WotC maintains that to the point it has to, in a way that every other tabletop role-playing game doesn't. Just about every game, including Shadowdark, has a narrow view, a limited amount of experiences that have a variety. It's like you might play the fighter, it's the same thing. You play the thief, it's the same thing. But if you play a fighter or thief in a open Dungeons and Dragons game, well, man, it could be anything. Who knows if your thief is going to be like the last one? And who knows what the adventure is going to be this time? You don't know where you're going. There's not a lot set in stone. It's a lot of randomness that can come your way. Now, I knew about this replayability factor years and years ago when I started developing my Neo TTRPG system. I'd already made 7 other gaming, tabletop role-playing game engines before this, but I knew over the many different engines, one issue I had was having a narrow view. And I realized, given what I've seen with other games, that was not good. That's not how you make a game that the majority want to cross over to, or a game that can really compete with D&D. Like, you can come in, get hot for a second, but the reason you'll always go away is if you don't have that replayability factor, that wide openness to what we do. So when I put the Neo TTRPG system together, I took that into account. Don't give the game a narrow view. Give a lot of options. Make sure all these things in combination can create a million outcomes. Where if you play this, it doesn't have to be the same 2 times in a row, and who knows what your experience is going to be. It's not like, oh, it's just this type of game and this is going to be your experience no matter what the theme or images are like. No, each game can be so vastly different from the other that even though the games are using the same mechanics from the Neo TTRPG system, it simply feels different. And your outcome can be very different. You can play the thief to be like this in this experience, but if you play him over here and do this, wow, completely different experience. It's the one piece of secret sauce I put into the game that I know Shadowdark doesn't have, I know Daggerheart doesn't have, I know Pathfinder doesn't have, I know all the other games that compete with D&D don't have. There's not a single game on the market that has the replayability factor that Dungeons and Dragons has until now. Until I put out my Skullhorn edition for my Neo TTRPG system, and then the Invasion edition for my Neo TTRPG systems. Both games are out now on DriveThruRPG, and those games have that replayability factor just like Dungeons and Dragons, and there are no other tabletop role-playing games on the market that have it to compete with D&D. Now, let me be real with you about my situation. Right? I'm someone who decided not to bother going down the Kickstarter road and having people give me a lot of money as I fix the game up, make a better PDF, do all the things people would want you to do with that money. Well, first off, I realized if you didn't have backing going into Kickstarter, 99% of Kickstarters fail. I have nobody to advertise what I'm doing. I knew if I went down the road of Kickstarter, I could be there forever. It would lock the game away, and most likely the game would never come out. So Kickstarter goes off the menu. But I had a lot of work to do with the game. You know, as I told people before, I come from a life of hustling, right, to get by and work. And when I made my game, well, when I started making my game years ago, there was no really PDF thing being pushed. I didn't even know I had to learn how to make that, and I didn't at the time. It was only years later that PDFs and stuff like that, the internet, became a thing where you would put these products in this way. And so I knew, you know, when I got the game completed, I could spend time the next 5 or 10 years trying to learn all this to make a perfect product, right? Just to put out there. And I said, no, I'm going to do what they do at Kickstarter, but what I'm going to do is go straight to the public. Put the game up so it's in a clean format where they can read it and play it. It's a full game, complete it. I'm not worried about that. And that's what I wanted people to pay for. I knew the PDF was rough. I knew some of the products I was putting out was rough. But I needed investment. I needed money to get programs to learn about creating PDFs and all this. And I'm a guy that even though I work and I have money coming in, my money pays my bills. I really don't have money to save. Right? It's not my circumstance right now in life. There's a long story to that. I had my shit together for a good 14 years and then got out of a 14-year relationship. Drama. I had to come back home and restart life all over again. So you can imagine, you know, you get to the bottom after being high for so long. It's hard. It's a struggle going back up. But I figured this is the time. I'm now, you know, single in life, independent in that way. And I figured, I gave up some of these dreams to make sure other things were going on in my life. And now I don't have to. So here I am putting out the game. And it's again, do I want to go through all these processes, learning 5 or 10 years, where I think I would just fail anyway if I tried that. And by the time I put the game out, I'd be at the end of my days. So it really wouldn't be something I get to experience or enjoy. And I want to do work on the game in the market and public. So I said, okay, I'll bring it out in this rough way. And that happened. I got a bunch of people that don't like me putting up fake negative reviews. Couldn't control that. I've said some heated things about tabletop role-playing games over the years. just opinions about the games that a lot of people don't agree with. Nothing extreme or controversial on that end, just opinions about games. What happened though is where they allow you to advertise your game, the groups on Facebook and other places that do allow you to advertise, because most don't, but some do. 99% of the places that do allow you ban me from their groups. And not because of a single statement I made on the group. Never even stated anything in most cases. When I would introduce myself, I would get banned without saying more. And like I said, in some cases, I didn't even get to introduce myself, and I'm banned. And I find out later, why all these groups are banning me, it's not because I'm causing any trouble in the group at all. It's because they seen a video where I state an opinion about a tabletop role-playing game, and a lot of people are sensitive to that opinion. It's not controversial, it's only an opinion about a game, but it got me booted off 99% of groups that allow you to advertise your game. So, no, I don't got money to advertise. I don't got people to promote me going through Kickstarter. I go right to drive-through explaining to people what's going on, but I had a lot of people lie about that, say I was just putting out a terrible product on purpose, didn't acknowledge anything I said, didn't do any of that. All my attempts to explain myself going into the market, which would have been good, just got warped. It got twisted by liars. I sort of knew that might happen, but I have no control over that. I can't stop people from freely doing deceitful things towards me and towards what I'm doing. You just have to let it go. Now, because of my opinions that aren't liked by certain people, it meant that a lot of people, say through YouTube, that do tabletop role-playing game content, won't stream with me, won't talk to me about anything related to the game. And in reality, the few people that would have me on their streams, well, their plan is to bring me on the stream to sabotage me in my game. I'm not rich. So imagine what it's like having almost no means of advertising. You're cut off. It's not going anywhere. Another thing I have a hard time doing is getting people to honestly take a look at the game. So, for example, the people that have game tested with me, they don't want to do anything live because of how people behave online. They don't want to go on video and have people see them where they know I'm innocent, but they just know it will draw hate or draw issues to them. So I can't really do live plays online with the game, because the people I would do the live plays with, well, they'll game with me in person, which they still do, but they won't get on live on here because of the controversy, and they don't want heat, and that I respect, right? But that's the heat that people in the tabletop role-playing game hobby bring to me, and they cause these issues on top of many other things. It's hard to advertise the game or show it off or anything. But here's what I would argue. To you, the potential customer, I have a game that you'll love. I have a game with the secret sauce of replayability. Now, I want to go into some other areas of my game. Like, I heard someone say my D100 system is no good. I don't know how it's no good. It works perfectly. D100 versus target number. There's a limit on the pluses you can have on the dice and minuses. It's pretty straightforward. I made the system work that way for ease of gameplay. I didn't want the dice gameplay part to be technically really difficult. I made that really easy. I've game tested the game for 15 years. That D100 system in my game works fucking perfectly, right? And you only need D10s and D6s to play my game because it's D100, but you can use 2 D10s. Beyond that, there is some individual roles that relate to D6s and D10s, but there's very few of them, like duration of a spell or the damage, you cause. It could be those types of roles. For everything else, from using skills to attacking to doing anything in the game, it's D100 versus target number. Now, I just told you the entire dice system of the game. That's how easy it is for players to instantly be able to get into the game and play. Character creation is really, really simple and easy, too. Once you go through the process of learning it the first time, every other character becomes an easy thing to create and make. No problem, really fucking quick, not a hassle. I've heard many bad reviews about the game, but it's all based on deceit. People And the people giving out the bad reviews all hated me before I put out the game. So you can imagine their incentive is not something towards being fair-minded with what I'm doing. These people told me before I put out a game, I pretty much got told that they were going to sabotage it and make sure that I would not be successful. But I want to tell you, I think I brought out the best tabletop role-playing game on the market right now. I really do. I think it outcompetes Daggerheart, Shadow Dark. It outcompetes every other game because it does the one thing those games aren't doing, and it's the one thing that causes those games not to compete with D&D, which is the replayability factor with a very good game and a million potential outcomes where it's not a narrow view. I got this, and my gameplay is better than D&D. Let me say that again. My gameplay with the dice and the engine is better than Dungeons and Dragons. Right? And I mean, I can go through how the dice work. You'll understand that it works. It's like D100 versus target number. So it's pretty straightforward. The most you can have for a target number is 150. Right? The most plus you can have on a D100 roll versus that target number is up to plus 100. So it's like a 50-50 if you get the max pluses. Right? But beyond that, you're rolling against target numbers that don't go beyond 150, and your D100 plus can't go beyond 100. So even if there's extended pluses, they get ignored. Right? So it becomes simplistic. And I measured it out that way to keep things, well, sane. I want things to be simplistic. And then you'll just realize you're rolling that D100 versus target number for just everything you do. And it becomes simple. It's not broken. It's not nothing, right? And it doesn't matter. Like, if they say, well, hey, he's using a D100 system. Oh, he's just copying other people. Well, I could use any dice. Like, look, there's so many things done. There's so many different ways. Like, I'm using ability scores. It doesn't mean that I'm cloning another game. It's how you use things and how they work into the package, the outcome. Now, you can't be a copycat. My ability scores can't be copy and pasted from D&D. It might be ability scores at the top, but the numbers, the way it works, the written out details are all different, and that works with a completely different engine with different outcomes, right? It's just you're going to see similarities. But people that don't like me will try to tell you that maybe I'm copying somebody. Or they'll tell you a D100 system is bad when there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with the dice system. I purposely made it simplistic to make sure it didn't break. Right, to make sure it works perfectly for you. But on top of that, it's easy to understand. So on day one, you can get a player into one of these Neo TTRPG system games, and there's a certain part of the game which they can just play. It doesn't take them days or even hours to learn. They can just play that and focus on the other things they're trying to figure out in the game. So it just takes the heat off. You don't have to worry. What do I roll against this? Like, you won't have a lot of that happening because the rolling system is so simple and so straightforward that the guys will just know, okay, like, what target number am I rolling against? It won't be what dice am I rolling, it's what target number am I rolling against for this. I see Dungeons and Dragons taking a dip right now, and you can see that with the success of Daggerheart, Shadow Dark. But I think it's taking a dip right now where there's a small opportunity where the market gets open. I just don't want to see the market get open to games that aren't going to last forever. Like games that can't even compete with D&D, why it's taking a dip. So what happens with it like it does every other time? Well, okay, you get your dip, people jump over to these side games for a minute, and then they all come back to D&D. It might not be 5e, it might not be the 2024 edition, but it will be back to some edition. Maybe old school, maybe 3rd edition, who knows? But they'll be back to D&D. And that's why D&D keeps winning, because it has that replayability factor. And that is the one thing 100% of the time all games that try to compete with it do not bring to the table. They don't bring it in the right way. It's not replayable in the same way that D&D is. And you got to realize what the openness is, what they're doing to attract players with all that variety. I realized it. And it is the one element I made sure to put to my game that the other games don't have. You know, I have no means of advertising with money. I have no means of going on the stream with people that don't like me. and trying to advertise the game there. I have no people in the tabletop role-playing game hobby that are going to give my game a fair shake. Every means of trying to show this game off to you is also gone. I don't have the players to play live to show the game off in that way. Again, I don't have people trying to be fair with the system, so even if you did see a live play, it's most likely an attempt at sabotaging what I'm doing. Yeah, I was told people are going to try to play my game live, most likely, and I was told straight up that it would be a misrepresentation of my game on purpose to sabotage my sales. Look, regardless to all this shit holding me back, all I can do is come to you, fair-minded person. And, I can ask you to maybe skip on that clone game for a minute, or the third-party product that won't do much for you, or maybe skip on buying that game that will go on your shelf that has a narrow view, that doesn't have replayability factor, and you'll probably never even play it the first time, let alone a second time. All I can do is ask you to consider buying my game, which if you play, you'll keep playing. I know it won't be something you put away, it won't be something that is just there that you own. It will be something that you have that you can actually enjoy. And once you get into it, you can play it for the rest of your life. And it is the only game other than D&D that has the replayability secret sauce factor that Dungeons and Dragons has. My game is really good. The options are great. The extended content that I make for it is wonderful. It's a lot of neat ideas. And I'm doing new content for these editions every week, right? I mean, I told people I'd be doing that for a year for each edition. And I'm coming through. I'm putting out more content than I promised. I've even put out some general host rules just for the Neo TTRPG system that got uploaded for both editions because it affects both editions. These extended rules that I made weren't requested, weren't something I promised, but I did it because I have a passion and I don't find this to be work. I want to be in the market, and I'm made for being in the market. I'm made for the business world. I'm made for that, and I'm made for understanding things. And unlike many people in the hobby, I got out in the public and met people over my 30 plus years of game mastering. Like, I really got to know this. I studied the market before getting in. I studied how things work. And I picked up things. I noticed things. And I did that for the purpose of wanting to get into the market. I wanted to understand it before I got into it so I could take advantage of things, learn things. And one of the main things I learned about D&D, which makes it just a brutal winner in every circumstance against every other tabletop role-playing game, it's the one thing, it's that replayability factor. It's that, hey, I can get in and do anything, and your imagination is wide open to the possible outcomes that can take place. When you go to play another game, you're just going to have the imagination is, okay, I know what kind of experience I'm going to have. How many different ways can I have that? What can I do with that? And the problem is, at first that's great, but that will become boring on your third or fourth attempt because you're pretty much doing the same thing. I'm not weak. I don't give up. And even if things don't work out for me right away with my game, I'll keep going at it for a long time. But I am working on some other projects that are not related to the tabletop role-playing game world exactly. Specific board games that go away from that, card games, stuff like that. Because I realize that, when you get to the tabletop role-playing game market, that's a hard market to get into. That's why I'm coming out and making a request, asking people to be open-minded. The chances of success in the tabletop role-playing game market, it's low. And that's because the customer base there is unlike any other customer base in any other market that there is. Like, you can take most practices that would get you success in any other market with any other game, toys, whatever you're selling. But you get to the tabletop role-playing game hobby, and even though that these gimmicks work 100% of the time in all other areas of life when it comes to business and market, for some reason when you get here with this crowd, those same gimmicks that work with everyone else, they don't work here. They should, but they don't. Because the gimmicks that work in other places are favorable to the customer base, the majority. But here, the majority is second class. The minority in this hobby has ruled the roost for over 50 years. And to a degree, they still do. That means there is no point in me making or taking more risk with trying to make products for the tabletop role-playing game hobby, at least not right now. What I've done is I brought something out, and even though I have like a million other things I could put onto that market, I'm not going to until that gets somewhere. If that gets somewhere, and then it's worth putting more work into these other things and doing more. But until I see that go somewhere, it's a waste of time. I put something out based on passion. Here's the reason why I'm okay with the Neo TTRPG system failing. I put this out because I want to give something back to the hobby. So even if I get nothing from it, I'm happy to have done this, right? So that's been my decision since day one. What I'm putting out now is it's a passion thing. Do I want to be in the market and make money and get somewhere? Of course I do. But I understand when I put this out, it might not happen because the customer base is very odd there. And things that they should reward, they don't. And people that don't deserve a reward, man, they get it en masse in that hobby. The amount of drama that has come my way from that hobby has been extreme. People pretend to be me, make fake accounts, go around starting shit, and then I gotta hear about it like it's me that caused the issue to begin with. I have people that lie about me endlessly and then deny the lies. I have people that will say shit about me every day, but then I'll be told that nobody talks about me ever. Nobody talks about me monthly, let alone daily, though I keep hearing about all the daily lies and shit said about me. But I guess somehow that didn't happen. You know, even recently I've unblocked some people from the tabletop role-playing game hobby that I had blocked, and I was hoping that maybe after a long period of time, there might be a chance of a mature interaction with certain people that have been immature in the past. These are old men, mind you, from the old school part of the hobby. Yeah, I took them off block, and what do you expect? Hateful pettiness. And you know what really is, how it feels petty? You know, I get out, and one thing I do that brings me joy is I feed homeless people once a week, and I help out kids with special needs. So this morning, I went and helped special need kids pack for a trip that they're going on. Now, I can't go on the trip, but I promised I'd come over and help them pack in the morning. That was great. Makes me feel good helping people, helping their parents, the whole 9 yards. I go home. Now, the reason they know me is I volunteer when it comes to different sporting events, and all that has to do with their kids. So they all know me. That's why they invited me over to help. It was great experience. Get back after feeling good, and I go to read a comment online from an old man in the tabletop role-playing game hobby that has no reason to dislike me other than the fact that I might have an opinion about a game that he doesn't agree with. And you know what I'm getting? I get hate, despicable, fucking petty, shallow hate from this old man over a game. There's no joy in his heart. It's nothing but darkness and depression and hate and shallowness. And that's all I get from certain people over my opinions about a game. I get home from doing something good and feeling great, and then I have to hear this darkness. And I have to hear this deceit, this bullshit, and this darkness all the time. Just about every day from someone from the tabletop role-playing game hobby. And usually 100% of the time, I say 100% of the time, and I say usually, we'll say 99.9% of the time, the hate that I get comes from a certain area of the tabletop role-playing game hobby, the old school part. It's hateful, depressing. Most of the people that lie about my game or gave it negative reviews, fake negative reviews, come from that part of the hobby. Now, I can't change how they are, right? And it's just how it is. Like, I've done nothing to really cause all the hate. Like if you said, like, these guys have been after you for years, Stephen. Why? I mean, you must have kicked their dog or kicked their kids or said something about their parents or their wife or something. Nope. I said something simple like I'm not a big fan of miniature gameplay. Yeah, I know. That's it. That's years of fucking hate, attacks, sabotaging. All comes from opinions that are like that. Right? That's it. I'm serious. You might think, oh, kick dog, no. All the hate comes from that. All the fake accounts made up about me, all the lies told about me, all the negativity that leads to all that stuff comes from the fact that I have an opinion about a tabletop role-playing game that old men don't like. They don't like that opinion. So they take it upon themselves to really go to their way and try to chase me away from YouTube. They've done that for 4 straight years. And the reason they've done it for 4 years is most of the time when they do that, people leave pretty quickly. But imagine what it's like when you stay. Like how the hate piles up because they expect you to leave because they never lose. They never lose that battle. Everyone leaves when they attack like this. So imagine if they're thinking, okay, even though it's taken a while, he'll go sooner or later. And I remember every time I would take off for work for like a few days or a couple weeks, they'd be like, we finally got rid of him. And then I would come back and they'd be like, wait, but we thought you were gone. No, I announced I was going to go to do some work and come back. Oh, and then I'm back and they go, okay, instead of, let's just forget about this and move on, they go back to their attacks. And I've been going through that for 4 straight years. But I am told that I don't get attacked and people ignore me. And I'm like, well, it'd be really nice if that were true. Like, that would be great. I'd be happy. I wouldn't even be talking about any of this if it were true. But the reason I can't advertise my game is because of these lies, because of the hate, because of the extreme reaction to me having opinions about games that people don't like. It's really, I haven't kicked anyone's dog, haven't kicked their kids, haven't said anything bad about their wife or their fucking parents, nothing like that. I have opinions about games that they don't like, and that is the reason you see me get crucified by people in the tabletop role-playing game hobby. I hope that most of you can see past that negativity and bullshit, realize that I'm just a regular guy, nothing crazy, normal guy, no secrets on that, very open about who I really am. I hope that you can see past all the negativity and consider what I said about the game and check it out. Purchase it. Support me. Play it and have fun. Okay. I love you. For now, take care.